Before diving into the story of Chang and Eng Bunker, I need to briefly explain what conjoined twins are. Conjoined twins are identical twins who are physically connected to each other in the womb. Most often, two complete or near-complete bodies don't form. Instead, one fully developed body may have parts of a second body, such as organs or limbs, attached. Depending on the stage of development, babies can be joined at different areas and to varying degrees. Since they are identical twins, they are always the same gender. Statistically, conjoined twins occur in about 1 in every 200,000 live births. I emphasize live births, because this number is almost double if we consider pregnancies that end in miscarriage or medical termination, often due to complications. In fact, most conjoined twins are identified early in the pregnancy and either miscarry naturally or are medically terminated. Interestingly, the condition is 3 times more common in females than males. While genetic and environmental factors are believed to play a role, no definite cause has been confirmed yet. Chang and Eng Bunker, two brothers forever linked by fate, were born on May 11, 1811, to a Chinese father and a half-Chinese Malaysian mother. This took place in what was then known as Siam, now called Thailand. Their names had a significant meaning in their native language, representing right and left, a reflection of their unique bond. Their birth caused quite a stir in Siam, a feudal society at the time, governed by landowners and their serfs. Even the midwives, terrified of a curse, refused to touch the twins. When news of their birth reached the king, he issued a death order for the brothers. However, their mother somehow managed to prevent this decree from being carried out. Whether it was luck, or simply that the king didn't focus too much on the matter, one thing is certain: the twins survived. With today's medical technology, they could have easily been separated, but back then, such possibilities were far more limited, and their mother opposed the idea of separating them. Instead, they learned to move, run, jump, and even swim as one. They adapted to their surroundings in a way that amazed everyone, performing feats of remarkable coordination. They rowed a boat in perfect harmony, and even went fishing together. One of their favorite activities was rolling down hills, tightly embracing each other. In fact, this playful movement stretched the 10-centimeter bond between them to nearly 15 centimeters. After a time, they lost their father to a cholera outbreak. This loss at such a young age forced them to start supporting their family by selling duck eggs when they were just 14 years old. In 1824, a Scottish businessman named Robert Hunter discovered them. Sensing the twins' potential for financial gain, Hunter convinced them to travel to America. However, rumors later spread that their mother had sold them to Hunter for $3,000. These rumors reached the king, and the twins were banned from leaving the country. It took Hunter a full 5 years to finally get the twins out of Siam. Chang and Eng eventually arrived in America in 1829. At the age of 17, Hunter and his American partner, Captain Abel Coffin, exhibited the twins in numerous theaters across America and England over the coming years. These years were exhausting for Chang and Eng, as they were displayed all day with little time for rest while traveling from city to city. Their performances also evolved over time. During their first shows in Boston in 1829, they simply stood on stage, demonstrated how they walked and ran and answered questions. Overall, they were met with respect and fascination wherever they went. Only once, when Hunter attempted to take them on a tour of France, did they face rejection. The French government denied the request, citing concerns that the exhibition could negatively affect the children's mental health. During their travels around the British Isles, Chang and Eng learned to speak English, but there was a problem. As their shows continued, their managers began treating them differently. For example, when they took a ship to England, Captain Coffin bought himself a first-class ticket, but got the twins' tickets in the section reserved for the crew and servants. The twins were earning just $10 a month, which was nothing compared to what their manager was making. At the age of 21, they made a bold move and revolutionized their own lives by canceling their contract. They formed their own team and took their career to the next level. Now, they were directly interacting with audiences, answering questions, and performing in more prestigious venues. This newfound control allowed them to showcase their personalities and talents in a way they hadn't been able to before. As time passed, the newspapers began focusing not only on their performances, but also on their personalities and differences. For instance, Chang, the twin on the left, was a few centimeters shorter than Eng, but he was more temperamental and dominant. Eng, on the other hand, was quieter and more introverted, yet intellectually sharper than Chang. Despite these differences being talked about with few exceptions, the twins always moved as if they were one body. Interestingly, they spoke very little to each other, leading some to believe they communicated telepathically. Their shows went on for 7 years, but during this time, they met a doctor who, they thought, would end their performing days for good, or so they believed. The doctor advised them that it was time to rest, and the twins didn't resist. In 1839, they moved to a quiet rural area in Northern California, far from the public eye, and began farming. They became American citizens and adopted the surname Bunker. Interestingly, after more than 15 years had passed since the rumors that Chang and Eng were sold as slaves by their mother, the twins ended up buying their own slave plantation. Quite ironic, isn't it? After their business ventures, love soon came knocking. The twins met two sisters, Adelaide and Sarah. The first to fall was our temperamental brother, Chang, who was smitten with Adelaide. Out of a sense of obligation, Eng began to develop a connection with Sarah. As time passed, the couples got to know each other and decided to marry. However, as expected, the girl's family strongly opposed the union, and the townsfolk saw it as a disaster. In the heat of their passionate love, Chang and Eng even considered undergoing risky surgery to be separated. They secretly planned a trip to Philadelphia for the operation, but in the end, their beloved Adelaide and Sarah opposed the idea and managed to change their minds at the last moment. After this, perhaps seeing the couple's determination, the girl's family finally gave their blessing. The couples were married in the family's home in 1843. They built two separate homes, though it's said that initially they all lived under one roof. The decision to split into two houses was likely due to disagreements between the sisters and the tension caused by Eng's gambling and Chang's drinking. The twins would alternate spending 3 days at each house. 1 year into their marriage, Sarah gave birth to a baby girl, followed just 6 days later by Adelaide, who also had a daughter. A year later, both women gave birth again, this time just 8 days apart. By 1,860 years, Adelaide had given birth to 7 children, and Sarah had 9, with none of them being twins. Craig Glenday, editor-in-chief of Guinness World Records, remarked, "Though there are no records of how Chang and Eng handled their intimate lives, the fact that their wives gave birth just a few days apart suggests some sort of coordination." After this period, they were forced to return to work. More than half of the Bunker twins' slaves were under the age of 7. These children were either expected to grow up and provide profit or work in the fields. Although the press described the twins' treatment of their slaves as harsh, Chang and Eng denied these accusations. By this time, the total number of their children had reached 21, and financial difficulties naturally followed. It was time for them to go back on tour. Unsurprisingly, when they returned to the American stage, public opinion had soured due to their involvement in the slave trade and alleged mistreatment of their slaves. The twins, however, insisted they were financially struggling, especially after losing their slaves, and presented themselves as elderly, poor men with large families to support. They decided to try their luck with a European tour. The tour went relatively well, but upon their return home by ship in 1870, Chang suffered a sudden stroke on his right side. While it didn't kill him, it left him significantly weakened. Eng had to help Chang with most tasks, which led to the end of their career. This was the final end, and there would be no return. The twins had become old and irritable men. Though they now wished to be separated, doctors warned that doing so would be no different from committing murder. In response, the twins requested that if one of them were to die, the doctors should perform the operation to separate the surviving brother. The doctors agreed to this request. However, things would not go as planned. Chang, the more temperamental of the two, became frail and weak after his stroke. He increased his drinking and eventually developed bronchitis. Eng, on the other hand, remained in good health, seemingly unaffected by his brother's declining condition. But that didn't change the fact that they were physically connected. And for Chang, things were far worse. In January of 1,874 years, the brothers who had brought the term Siamese twins into the world passed away in the bed they shared, just 2 hours apart. After examination, it was believed that Chang had likely died from a blood clot in his brain, while Eng's death was attributed either to the shock of losing his brother or complications from their shared circulatory system, possibly leading to blood loss. Born into the world under tragic circumstances, the twins achieved an extraordinary career and family life, far beyond what seemed possible for them, and in the end, they departed this world together, still joined in the same bed where their journey ended. The Bunker twins held the record as the longest living conjoined twins until 1,951 years, when the Galliam twins were born and went on to live for 68 years. Today, Chang and Eng have thousands of descendants. Every May, their large extended family gathers to honor the legacy of their famous ancestors, celebrating the remarkable lives of the brothers who defied the odds.